Greetings. Back with another one. Now, for all of us, martial arts, martial science enthusiasts, I'm sure a great deal of us know that karate originally came from Okinawa, which is the island that they used to be called the Ryokyo Kingdom Islands. That's what the south of Japan before the the conquering of the island and stuff like that. But yeah, karate is originally Okinawan, and then um, it didn't really make its way to mainland Japan until 1929, 1930, around that time. But I want to talk about the weaponry that was used in Okinawa karate, and it's called kobudo. And I'm familiar with some. When I was training, I'm familiar with some of the weaponry, but I'm here on the shortyandryu.com, and just going to just talk about the history of what kobudo is. And here we go. Kobudo is an Okinawan term that is referred to kobujitsu or ancient weapon art. In 1477, during the Second Sho dynasty, swords and other weapons were banned from Okinawa and the Ryukyu Islands by Emperor Shoshin. All weapons on the island were collected and garrisoned in the royal castle in the Shori on Okinawa. It was a direct result of Shoshin's edict that Okinawans turned to the development of karate, open hand combat fighting. Although kobudo weapons are not really a part of karate, their development has shadowed and developed the evolution of karate to the degree that they are almost inspirable. So basically, it was saying that all of their weapons were collected. So it's like I said, so it's the Show dynasty. So basically, what they're saying, their weapons were collected and stuff like. So they had to develop, you know, combat techniques, using the empty hand without weaponry. Of course, the weapons being an extension of the body. So that's how karate became to be because the weapons were confiscated. So that's pretty cool to know. That I didn't know. I didn't know that the weaponry was garrison and stuff. That I didn't know. But again, I just ate. I always record right after I eat for some reason. That's why you always see me burping and yep. But in 1600, the Japanese invaded and occupied Okinawa. As a conquering army, they used the continued prohibition of weapons as a method of controlling the population. This was combined with an attitude by the Japanese that still permeates the island today, that Okinawans were second-class citizens and not as good as Japanese. Even today, most any Okinawan will quickly inform to you, I am not Japanese, I am Okinawan. Therefore, only Japanese samurai were permitted to own and carry weapons. Okinawan karate further developed from its Chinese roots. Yeah, because like I said, during the Shou dynasty, because you had you had Chinese who came over, and I'm certain that the combat styles they were using were picked up by the Okinawa natives who lived there, and they created like a hard developed version of kung fu and Chinese the Chinese martial arts and stuff. So it's cool how they did that, because karate came from kung fu. Where am I? Okay. Just as the monks in China had developed weapons from seemingly innocent items such as the staff, so to do the Okinawans. These creative farmers and fishers resorted to weaponizing the implements of their everyday working life. Yeah, exactly. See, a lot of weaponries that you see today that I'm gonna go down and we'll look at them together. But a lot of these weaponries, I think just about all of them have farming. I mean that was the use for the original use for them. They were just used for farming and fishing. And the villagers, when it came to like invaders, just who just would just come about, the farmers and the fishermen, they would just use whatever they had in their hands. Whether they were farming, fishing, and they just used these tools and stuff like that. So originally, a lot of these weapons had, farming use. I wonder, do they still use them anymore, or has it updated to the point where they're now using, regular gardening tools? To do some people in the country style still use the stuff for their original use? I wonder. I never been to Okinawa, but I would love to go someday. Um, where am I? Where am I? Where am I? Oh yeah, they developed complex weapons forms for such items as the boat oar, the echo. Yeah, see that's what it was. Yeah, the echo. The echo is basically like it looks like it basically like a paddle. It's like a boat paddle and fishnet floats. Yeah, yeah, it basically like a paddle that you use to like paddle the boat. I believe that's what the echo is. And like I said, they just use whatever weapons they had, against invaders and stuff like that. Fishnet floats, the Jason Kondo, which is a bow, I believe a bow staff, I believe. The millstone handles, tonfa, the tonfa, yeah. Top knot pence, jiwa, sickles, comma, the saddle stirrups, tekos, the saddle stirrups, wow, and the 6 foot staff, the bow staff, yeah. Over the years, modern machinery and implements replaced most of the traditional kobudo implements. However, they remain an integral part of kobujutsu, which is pretty cool. With the growth and development of the Shorin Ryu, the Matsubayashi, Riru, Karate, certain kobudo weapons have remained closely in line to our system. Like I said, this is somebody else's page, so these weapons include the bow staff, the sai, the tofa, the kama, and the nunchaku. By adding weapons training to the traditional open hand training, Grandmaster Nagamine felt the individual student could enhance their mental and physical training. Yeah, this is somebody's website. But yeah, these are the weapons that consist of kobudo, which the Okinawan roots. Like all of these weapons had their original purposes, but the kama, it says the kama were one of the first weapons utilized by the Okinawans after the confiscation of their other weapons. Kamas had long been used as a fighting blade in addition to its routine farm uses of cutting grass, rice, and sugarcane. The weapon could be utilized to cut, slice, block for striking. Another version of this weapon, the Kurosagama, had a length. That's pretty much the combo, but it has a chain on it. Had a length of a chain attached to increase its length. However, since chain was a short supply of the primitive island, and in addition of the chain made the common more clearly a weapon, its use was so it was limited. All right. Next, we got the bow staff. 6 foot. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I thought the bow staff was a little so the Joe staff must be. Yeah, the Joe staff is the longer staff. So if the bow staff is 6 feet, the Joe staff has got to be, I don't know, at least 8 feet or 7 feet. I mean, the Joe staff is pretty long, and it's thinner too than the bow staff. The bow staff is a little thicker. But the bow staff is another early weapon of Okinawa. It differed in that it was utilized by peasants, monks, and samurai alike. Fashion of Okinawan hardwood, the bow is 6 feet long and 1/2 to 2 inches in diameter. Many present day bows taper at the end. This is probably not the traditional staff, as the bow was utilized to carry water buckets and other items. If the original staff was indeed tapered at the ends, it would have been more difficult to keep items on it. Because of this the original bows are felt to have been non-tapered. The bow's size makes it a good weapon to use against swords and to disarm an opponent while allowing the bow practitioner to remain at a safer distance. Manipulation of the weapon requires a thorough knowledge of basic karate stances and techniques. Yeah. Like I said, I always favor so when it comes to weaponry, I really favor the wooden weapons. I mean, probably mainly just because it's people don't walk around with katanas and you know people don't walk around with swords much anymore. So now that we live in modern times, of course a wooden weapon can be considered non-lethal as opposed to a bladed weapon. I mean, wooden weapons can be lethal if you. I mean, it can cause blunt force trauma and send a person to anaphylactic shock. But I just like the bow. I just like the bow weapons. I mean, the wooden weapons because just for safety purposes. You don't have to worry about cutting somebody's artery and putting somebody down permanently. I mean, you can just clock somebody. Just right in the knee or probably like right in the temple or something like that, and just put a knot on somebody's head and and that probably be good enough. And of course, watching the old films and stuff like that, seeing all the bow weapons. Now, tonfa. Controversy surrounding the original use of the tonfa. Yeah, I never actually really knew the original use for the tonfa. I mean, I always know what this. I always seen what this weapon is. You see police officers use them and stuff like that. But controversy around the original use of the tonfa, it has been referred to as a rice grinder. So I guess they had a bowl and they would just, I guess they just kind of like grind the rice. I guess they kind of like just mulch it. I guess, although some evidence exists to support its use as a milestone handler. Either way, it was used. Its use has also paralleled the development of karate. The tofu are very effective weapons for striking and blocking. The handle can be used to twirl the weapon, thereby increasing its reach. The sides of the weapon are used primarily for blocking and the ends of striking. Although generally used in pairs, it's also an effective weapon when used singularly. Good evidence of this is seen with the adaptation of the tonfa in a great number of police departments. Yeah, police officers using. I always find that kind of uncanny that was the blunt weapon of choice that police officers used was the tonfa. I always thought that was pretty crazy, even though they don't use it. I mean, maybe some officers do. I mean, I'm not on patrol or anything like that. Maybe some officers use it, the way how the traditional Okinawans used to use in martial arts, maybe. But most of the time, when you see them in the films, the police officers usually kind of like they kind of have like a batting, action when they're swinging it. You really see them holding it, by the handle there. I never really seen a cop handle it like that before, but maybe some do. Yeah, you see some pictures of Okinawa's fighting back and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. Now a blade against a wooden weapon probably won't. I mean, the wooden weapon for sure won't last long, but you use what you got. And the sai, I'm pretty sure a lot of people know what this weapon is. You've seen. I'm telling you, the sai is probably the least popular when it comes to like the traditional Okinawan weapons. You rarely. I mean, when the last time when I went to like seeing like some weapon katas and stuff like that, the sai was never really used. I maybe seen like two people, but a lot of people favor, the staff traditionally, the katanas and the tontos and of course the nunchakus that you see down there. But yeah, the sai was very very rare, and I think just because they're very unorthodox in terms of their use and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just something about this side. I've always liked this side because it was so different. And of course, growing up watching the Ninja Turtles and you see, Raphael, he's my favorite turtle, and of course he uses this side. So that was kind of like my first introduction to the side when I was just watching Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. And then of course I got older a little bit, started going back and watching the old martial arts films and stuff like that, and you would see it. But the sai are found in both Okinawa and other Oriental martial arts schools. Using sets, the sai are made of iron and weigh upwards of 3 pounds each. It can be used to block, stab, trap, or strike. In Okinawa, forms develop where the sai was thrown. When thrown, the practitioner would frequently carry a third sai in his belt to replace the thrown sai. The pommel of the sai's handle could be used to block and to crush. A sai could also be attached to a bow to create a spear. Attached to the bow, wow. That I didn't know. Attached to the bow. Yeah, originally the sai was probably used as a farm implement. He has a pitchfork. Yeah, see the sai were used to dig the holes so the villagers can plant their crops. They were used to as pitchforks to dig the holes and stuff, create holes and stuff so they can plant things. But then again, they just the villagers, they just used with it whatever they had. And probably the most popular out of all of the ancient or the traditional Okinawan weapons is the nunchaku. A lot of people think that the nunchaku is Chinese, but it was Okinawan merely. I mean, yeah, you had flail weapons in the old dynasty days in China, But I don't think they were, wooden weapons like this. I mean, the most flails that you'll probably see is the like a mace looking on flail. Like you'll have probably like a counterweight on one end, and then you'll have like a ball and a chain on the other one, and you had like people during the Han Dynasty days. The period in China, the games that are Dynasty Wars are based on the Han Dynasty. Yeah, you may have like flails and slump blades, but I don't believe they looked exactly like how the Okinawans used them. Mainly because of their original use. But yeah, I mean, obviously you seen Bruce Lee, made the nunchaku very famous and stuff like that. Yeah, but yeah, but the nunchaku was originally a tool for thrashing rice, wheat, or other grains. To the Japanese, it appeared to be two harmless wooden sticks connected with a length of rope, braided horsehair, or chain. The nunchaku were utilized to strike, block, and trap an opponent. Stances utilized with the nunchaku were the same as those utilized in karate. So again, the development of the two closest parallel each other. Use of the nunchaku required the martial artist to be equally proficient with either hand. During its use, the weapon could be switched from one hand to the other as needed. Yeah, yeah. Most accidentals were introduced to the nunchaku by Bruce Lee in the 1970s. See, there you go. See me, Bruce Lee in the 1970s. When I first saw him using the nunchaku, I became obsessed with it. I actually had this old end table that was kind of like I guess you could say no longer serving its purpose. And instead of throwing all of it away, because it was basically just a wooden end table, it had like a flat top and it had like three wooden pegs, and it was pretty much the same color as the background of this website. It was like a bright color of wood, and I just screwed two of I screwed one. All I needed was one because the leg was very very long. They probably had to been like 4 feet long. They were pretty long, so I just screwed one of the legs, and I had like a knife or like a grated knife, and I just sawed it in half. And I didn't have a chain that I could find anywhere. It didn't have any nails or anything. So what I did, I had like these old goggles that I used to use back in junior high school, like for science class and stuff like that. So I had these old goggles, and those rubber straps that keep the goggles together, to keep the lenses together. I took that rubber strap, and I just tied it between both of the pieces of wood. And that was the very first nunchaku I made. I mean, when it comes to nunchaku, I'm pretty sure a mother's broom or a mother's mop was probably sacrificed. And a lot of kids were probably doing this, especially in the 1970s when they saw like Bruce Lee using them. But that was the first chaku I ever made. It was just a single leg from an end table until I started working and making my own money. So then I started to buy them. And when you're first training with the chaku, at least for me, the one thing that I wanted to avoid was clocking myself upside the head. Fortunately, I never did. I really didn't smack myself in the back of the head. I was good at switching the hands and stuff like that. I was very good at mimicking what I saw in films and stuff like that. But I did kind of clock my elbows a little bit, because when you're switching the hands with the chaku, you have to swing it back, and you have to make sure that the opposite hand is catching it. And in the beginning, when I was using them, my underhand would miss, and the flail would kind of like hit the backside of my elbow. So that happened, quite frequently until I, was able to get better at, switching up the hands. But yeah, man, that is some of the ancient traditional weapons of Okinawan history. And I also have this other website loaded up, the Itosu Ryu Karate Do International Federation is actually located in Japan, and they were talking about yeah, I seen this like the Ryokyu or Kobudo Kongo Ryu. I don't know what that is, but I just wanted to read this a little bit, get a little bit of history, and of course you see some of the the practitioners, the teachers there doing the demonstrations and stuff like that. It's just so much history involved. It's pretty cool. Like if you're into this stuff, like I am, I'm very much a nerd when it comes to this stuff. It's just so cool. Just the creativity in the inspiration just by using your surroundings and stuff like that. But what is Ryokyo Kobudo Kongo Ryo? From 1957, Taira, that's pretty small here. Let me see if I can enlarge them a little bit. Not working. Uh, I got poor eyesight, but yeah, from 1957, Tada Sinken resided from some time with the Sakagami family. Like I said, I'm not Japanese, so please forgive me if I'm butchering these. So I'm learning though. And taught Ryokyu Kobudo at the Irosu Kai headquarters. Many of the Ryokyu Kobudo kata handed down in our style come from Taira Sinken. So who is on Taira Sinken? Is he one of these teachers? So that's Master Taira. All right, yeah. So I guess it's this. Yeah, the guy. Yeah, the middle frame here, the guy on the left, Master Taira. So they're pretty much talking about his history, I believe. It said when Taira Sinken established the Ryokyo, when he established it in November 1961, he appointed Master Sakagami, and that was this guy right next to him. I don't have my cursor highlighted on the screen, but it's the guy. Yeah, you see it, Master R. Sakagami. So we're just talking about these history of these masters, these teachers here. Master Sakagami Ryosho as the head of the Kanto region. Sakagami was awarded the first Shinhan, which is one of the ranks, certificate in May 1960. In 1963, he was awarded Hanshi, eighth Dan, after contributing significantly to the promotion of Kobudo. So his son, Sakagami, his son started learning karate do and kendo from his father in 1954. From 1960, he was instructed by the Taira. In November 1969, the Okinawa headquarters of the Ryokyo Kobudo Hozon Shinkokai Society from the preservation and promotion of the Ryokyo Yon Kobudo. It's a mouthful. Appointed him a Shihan and head of the Kanto region. Okay, so yeah, all right. So they're just talking about these practitioners. I guess these. Okinawa. Yeah. Were these guys from Okinawa? Yes, yeah. I see. I guess these were Japanese guys who, prolonged, the original Okinawan teachings on mainland Japan. And I just wanted, just talk about them a little bit, because I never heard of these guys, but I'm pretty sure they're well known in Okinawa and Japan, obviously. But there's a lot of martial arts masters who are not really famous in terms of actors or anything like that. It's a lot of people, and there's another practitioner, a Japanese practitioner that I would like to talk about also, and there's but yeah, this is a school out in Japan that teaches a kobudo, a kata list, and you see all the weapons there. You see the bow staff, the tonfa, the chaku, kama, the kai, the tempe, the rochin, and teku and sai. But yeah, man, I just wanted to shine some light on the Okinawan traditions and stuff like that, and just knowing that that's where karate came from, inspired by the Chinese martial arts, and then and of course it made its way up to mainland Japan. I think centuries after that. Oh man, I just love this stuff. I'm really a nerd when it comes to just martial arts and martial science and just the philosophy and the teachings and stuff like that. And I just wanted to share this with all you guys, man, for all you other enthusiasts out there. But yeah, man, another one for the archives. 31 cents added. It's your brother Bleak signing out. Until next time, you guys. Whoos.